So welcome everyone to CI/CD UX meeting. I think we have those bi-weekly. We have a couple of read-only items, of course, for checking in. We don't have any updates in the your stage group part. Just wanna again pause and reinforce if anybody has anything interesting happening in the stage groups that you wanna share. Actually, Ian, you are doing some interesting parts with that new unmoderated testing. Maybe that's a good one to share for awareness.
Yeah, I will add it to the agenda, but we are doing unmoderated testing to validate an updated design to some settings that we have on the package side of things. And it was funny because Lori and I were trying to come up with a way to use Zoom to make like a makeshift unmoderated test. And at the same time, Adam, I believe, was kicking off trying out some different solutions. And so we're going to run it as a pilot of usertesting.com and see what that experience is like. I'm really excited because I think unmoderated testing like this could really open up a lot of doors for how we do, especially in the solution validation stage of the main question is, does this help you? I think it's a really powerful tool, and it gives us more space to be able to do more qualitative moderated testing during the problem validation stage. Why are you having this problem? Why do you think these things are there? So it's exciting to get more tools. Do you have any other thoughts, Lori? I just kind of a bunch of thoughts.
No, I'm so excited that you had the project come up at the same time that Adam was looking at these different tools. So it seems perfect based on the ones that I've done in the past. I think what we're really wanting to understand is the amount of time it takes to set it up. Of course, that's why I asked you that the other day. And then how robust their panel is to recruit. So if we gave them, because there's like two different kinds of contracts, I guess you could sign with them. One, you do your own recruiting with Emily, or the other, you could rely on them. And if we rely on them, it's quite more expensive, but if they have a good group of people to pull from, then hey, Emily can be used in other aspects. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. I think that's an important part because unmoderated testing, that's like a step to well, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like a step to a maturity as in some ways. So really exciting. Looking forward to see the results of that. Thanks for sharing, Ian. Yeah, I don't know, anything else that we want to mention here?
I'm very excited about these. I think I talked with you, Nadia, about this in the past as well, that I really thought that the moderated testing was something that we are missing, and that eventually it could like help us like in many areas where it just makes sense to just sometimes not be in front of the computer trying to guide the design, but just let the user like on their own time figure it out. I think that there's something powerful about that, you know, because I think the problem is more on how you instrument the design or like the artifact that they're gonna use while they perform this in a moderated way. But I think we can figure out that as we keep exploring this. But I'm very excited to learn how, what's gonna be the result of this. So please share once you guys have that.
Cool. True, I now remember that we talked with you about that one as well. Alrighty, then moving on. I have an interesting thing kind of like that I wanted to, a topic that I wanted to bring up with you all and collect maybe some thoughts or like at least try to figure out what is happening here. This came from the discussion with Marcel about the UX depth definition. We've been like, I don't know if you have been seeing, there is a lot of discussion around that topic going on. And actually this issue right now is a collection of all of the discussions around what is UX depth, what is UX bug. And actually there is another issue or an MR connected to that one about defining the UI polish. But first we kind of want to figure out what does UX depth mean to us today at GitLab and what's the difference between the UX bug. and that. And then we've been going with Marcel into investigation. Because in the UX handbook, we say that the UX depth is a intentional, like, kind of like poor user experience that we dedicate to fix later. And then because it's intentional, we are not, we're supposed to not have a severity label for that higher than S3. But if we go into the GitLab issues, or if you filter for UX depth and S2, which is severity 2, we actually see already 5 issues, which were before 12 or 10, I don't remember. And like, unfortunately, all of those are coming from our team, CI/CD. Not that I'm not throwing, how to say, stones into anybody's gardens, for sure. I'm just trying to figure out, like, why do you think this is happening? Maybe this is happening from like a wrong understanding of what UX depth means, or maybe like not enough spreading of this term. Anyway, just want to throw it to you and see, like, have you noticed this before, that we actually have UX depth for S2, and maybe you're familiar with some of these issues and you have some ideas why they're appearing and where they're coming from?
Well, we talked about it yesterday, you and I, on our one-on-one. But I think my initial understanding of UX depth, I think, was wrong until I read that issue. I think I got the meaning of UX depth is anything that was decided intentionally and it was decided that it was going to be addressed later. So that's the depth part, right? I think many people didn't know that or don't know that because they are mapping to like to the tech depth idea of like, oh, there's things that feel like depth, but they are not intentional, right? Like there's many things that decisions that were made in the past, not necessarily things that were intentionally made and purposefully like thought to be addressed later. So I think that means that many people apply the UX depth label in a very liberal way. I think that's how you end up with S2s plus UX depth. So I don't think because there's a relationship between both of them. But that's just a thought. I don't know.
Yeah. But I think you're touching a right point, to be honest. And I know, Ian, that there is none of package, so it's probably like harder to judge. I'd be curious to hear what also Dimitri. There he is also. But I think I agree with your thoughts, Juan, and this is why I think it's also really good timing for discussing those, the difference between the two. Hey, Dimitri, you're joining at a really good time.
Hey, sorry for being late. Time flies. I was busy.
No worries. Hey, we're talking about this point here about the UX depth and the severity 2 labels, and I know that you've been super active on that discussion. And I'm bringing here a point that I'm not sure if I shared with you earlier, where when filtering for issues that have UX depth and severity 2 labels, so which is like a kind of like against what we say in the handbook, that it should not be higher than severity 3. We come up with a list of 5 issues, and quite a lot, like all of them are CI/CD, and there are few in continuous integration, for example. I wanted to hear, like, Juan already said that he thinks that severity 2 plus UX depth happens because we probably not all on the same page what UX depth means in GitLab, because there is a lot of different understandings. But I wanted to hear your thoughts here. What do you think is the problem, if you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the issue linked here, I highlighted here now, actually really includes a lot of useful feedback and how everybody perceives UX depth versus UX bug. And my latest comment, and I've also had some conversation with Marcel about this, but my latest comment revolves around that the latest description offered by Valerie. She says basically she wants the UX Dev label description to be changed to the following, which is a follow-up issue that occurs when an intentional decision is made to deviate from the MVC, which sacrifices the user experience. However, this doesn't take into account that a single issue doesn't mean MVC. So for example, if I plan out an issue, and it might be in a way that an issue will be implemented in several parts to become it in its viable state. And that is perfectly reasonable to expect, because that is the reason we have feature flags in a way, right? Like, all right, we don't ideally want such features to be accessible to the public, and therefore we have feature flags so we can, diminish our risks there. But this does mean that we can introduce issues with high severity labels, because it is part of that road to the actual viable minimal change. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, and how, and that kind of, like, from my point of view, that would validate a reason for being of such issues that UX Dev or UX bug with high severity labels. I think we're often geared towards a single issue should mean MVC, while I don't think that is actually the case.
Can I add a thought to that? I think that another thing that I was thinking while Dimitri was giving his thought on this is very related to what you said about the issue not being not capturing the whole MVC. I think that's true. It also the issues when we're creating them, because of the nature of like GitLab's culture, that it's MVC and iteration, like it all, like that definition almost gives you the idea that any decision that you take for the sake of iteration or MVC, it's gonna incur on UX Dev, or that's the feeling that I get out of that definition, right? Because many times we decide on things like, okay, we're not gonna make these super complex because we wanna be fast and we wanna iterate and we wanna get feedback. But that definition conflicts a little bit with the idea of, if we go by that definition, everything that we create on an MVC is gonna incur on depth, So if that's how it's being applied, then like many people might like be thinking that like, I'm just thinking that it's like the liberal use of UX Dev. It's what creates that situation of S2s or S3s with UX Dev. It's not because of the UX Dev. It's mostly because, in that sense, everything will be UX Dev, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I often see it that way as well, where I sometimes say, all right, like, hey, this is in a way UX Dev. And like for some of the things, I would say even like, coming from the discussion side of the issue, there's the clear difference between UX Dev and UX bug as it being intentional or not. But for some of the functionality, even still, we are looking at legacy code or legacy UI that hasn't been touched in a while. Nobody knows if it was intentional, yes or no. Should it in that case be UX bug or a UX Dev? I have no idea. I have no idea how to classify that, and also wonder if it really makes a lot of difference in a way.
Yeah. Hey, Kayana, by the way. Just want to make sure that I think those are great thoughts. And actually, what I will encourage in order to move on, everybody who has thoughts in regard the difference between UX depth and UX bug, just please visit this issue. First of all, read all of the really useful info there, but also leave your thoughts there as well, so we can carry this discussion to the issue and also contribute our thoughts and make sure that they're visible to others. I think this is super useful because it is an important topic that's been up and down for quite a few times recently. So yeah. All right. If are we okay with moving on, or anybody feels like there is an important point still to talk about, to mention about this topic?
I have a lot of opinion, but I'll refrain to do it async since I joined late.
Cool. Thanks, Kayana. How are you doing? Going back a bit to work?
Yeah, swimming my sea of unread emails and surviving a heat wave. So I'm happy that we have a day off on Friday. But
yeah, a little like kind of easy in.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to my next item. It's more an FYI. I just wanted to give a heads up. I've been talking with some people on the team, and like I feel like we have a lot of discussions about the UX definition of done, its usefulness or its not usefulness. I know that we are today running the process in release management and in CI, and just an FYI heads up that I want to schedule like a retro or a discussion in a sync way probably for us at the end of August, so we can share the learnings and maybe find some tips for other stage groups who would like to adopt that in the future. So just a little heads up that this is coming in. So prepare, collect your thoughts. they will be needed. Vitika says that she is excited to share her experience. That's good. Okay, Juan, over to you.
Oh, sorry. I thought this was like a continuation of the same topic. On the UX DoD, I had my first retro with Jackie today. I think we applied the UX DoD for 4 milestones, 5 maybe. And we made some decisions on how we want to use it. I know they're different from the way that Vitika is trying to implement with the verify. And we decided that we're going to apply it only at the epic level or like the MVC levels. Because there's too many steps for small things. And also that once we are like, validating things, talking to customers, and we are busy with actual work, we don't go back to update it as much. So it serves as a way to guide us and tell us where we are in the UX process, but it should not constrain, what we do. And since we want to have some sort of structure for the big items, we're going to start experimenting as of Q3 with UX DoD for epics / MVCs only. And that's pretty much it. So I'm happy to share this next quarter, this quarter. I'm not sure which quarter we are anymore.
This is an interesting learning. I think, because there were some, not struggles, but positives and negatives from Vitika as well. So sounds like it's going to be a great session. Thanks for a heads up, Jana. I'll create an issue probably so we can do it async as well, and we can collect data and then share it with everyone. Juan, over to you.
I just wanted to say that we have that KR to the migration buttons and other things that need to be migrated, not only buttons, but we started with buttons. And if anyone needs help with that, I already migrated 4, and I have another couple that open MRs for that. So I think I already got like a good, like a good idea of how to do it. So if anyone needs help, feel free to reach out to me, put some time on my calendar, schedule some time. Anything that you need, I'm happy to help. That was just the announcement.
Thanks, Juan. You're definitely a star there. Hayana, linking the OKRs. There is a main UX one, and I will link the CI/CD one as well. Yeah, if you'll have any questions, reach out, because there was quite some discussions. Lori, over to you, I think, in the meantime, Juan, if you are done.
Yeah, so Andre and I kicked off the CI adoption journey project earlier today. We'd already done some stakeholder interviews to kind of wrap our heads around what this thing is. So we uncovered a lot of inconsistencies, which actually helped us to focus on our research efforts. So we've got like 4 or 5 different research projects in this project, and we're going to go all the way through the quarter with it. It'll probably wrap up by the end of October. There'll be some other, I don't want to call them milestones, it's usually what we call them, but that's what we call our sprints. So some other endpoints in there as the different efforts wrap up, and per direction from our stakeholders, we will be working with Jason and Kenny to put merge requests in to actually update several pages on in our handbook and on our website concerning the information that we find out. So our task is to understand what is adoption, how do our customers define that, where does it start, where does it end, what are the barriers if we don't already know them, as well as try to gather some organizational information too, like from an organizational standpoint around CI adoption, and as well as an individual perspective, and to focus on the kind of the scientist people, so your non-developer technical people, and also dive into the non-web app software teams. Could be DevOps, could just be Sasha's, who knows, we'll see. But a lot of the effort of the company is pushed towards appealing to web app people, but there are a lot of people who don't do web apps. So we want to understand what are the differences there, and if there are any. And yeah, so we've got lots of projects, and this is all linked into that epic. We've got children epics and then issues. So we're also trying to dog food the Gantt chart as well for project management. So that was fun.
Cool. And just because we talked with you a bit earlier about that, I guess for now there is no action items for product designers. Funny, Ian, I see the clapping icon on your. So there is no action items from designers expected for now, but I guess I expect a lot of really useful information also for that will probably influence jobs to be done in some way, maybe for some stages. I don't know. I expect a lot of was coming out of this.
I think so. So one of the things we want to do is jobs to be done for those 2 personas, and we'll work with Vitika and Tal to understand what they've got going on for their current personas that they're looking at, as Sasha and Devin, I think, for CI, and see if they're different or the same, or how that is going to get looked at and consumed. But definitely we'll have that as an output. And I suspect that this information will trickle down later to all of us, because runners are a part of this, testing is a part of this. There's many facets that are a part of this, but it won't be apparent immediately, but it'll hopefully make it into everybody's roadmaps for maybe Q4, maybe next fiscal year as well.
Keep us posted, Lori. Anything else about user research? Anybody has an interesting study that was happening that maybe has some nice insights?
We are talking to consumers about group releases. I think I mentioned this in my last UX showcase. I'm going to add the link here. And then we're doing internal customer interviews and validating some of the prototypes and some of the assumptions that we have about the workflow. And it's great when you get very destructive feedback. It's like when the things that you show are not the things that people expect. So it's been fun to actually get that sense and the perspective from users, because we want to have the ability to associate these project releases at the group level. But then, hi Jackie. But then we also started talking about what comes next. So the ability to add assets to release at the group level. And today Marin mentioned something as specifying release notes or description to that group release. So it's been interesting to get this kind of feedback. And Jackie, if you want, I'm just mentioning that we're talking to customers about group releases. If you want to add anything, feel free.
Yeah, super excited. Although, as I'm learning more about it, I get more nervous about how this will change, like the side panel and what we want to package up for useful insights. And then, of course, I'm learning a lot of our enterprise customers don't really use groups and projects in the same sort of manner or architecture. So group releases are kind of great for a microservices project, where you have a bunch of projects that and subgroups that feed into a single customer's application or experience. Not really the same way if they have like subgroups that are about business operations or HR processes and have nothing to do with like a code deployment. But excited altogether.
Cool. Sounds like some really important data that can influence a lot of things. Exciting. We close to being done any soon?
What do you mean that on the design phase?
Like no, wrapping up the user research to kind of like how do you say, summarize the data.
Yeah, who else do you want to talk to, Jackie, internally?
I spoke with Steve and spoke with Tim Pfaffenberger. Oh gosh, I just butchered his last name. I'm sorry if you're watching this recording later. And then we'll have hopefully another couple of people internally, and then externally I've talked to 2 customers about it. And we're using Dovetail to track all this stuff. So eventually we'll extract like the 10 nuggets that will build our feature from all of the 500 insights that I create.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I see that so many people added some stuff about the research. Dimitri, you're next.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I was just talking with Nadia about this yesterday. And for A/B testing, I've gone a little bit extra. I've done some more interviews than what is normal, but there was some of it internal and some of it external. So that's the reason why. But it is interesting to note that the quality of the feedback from the internal participants was way higher than from the external participants. Not that that is a given, but in this case, it was like that. And I find that an interesting thing to share, and that mostly revolved around the fact that I think that the internal participants better reflected the customers that we will be developing for than the external participants I was interviewing with. But regardless, there was still valuable input from the external participants. And also, as a last note to that, I have been interviewing the external participants later than the internal ones. So perhaps I'm a little biased because I knew most of it already. And then there was a lot of duplicated feedback, I'd say, and then there's some little extra nuggets of information added to that. So just for your information, but if anybody has any comments, I would love to hear.
Lori, curious to hear your perspective on internal feedback being more valuable than external.
It just depends on where we are, I think, in the stage of the feature or the function. If we're still kind of in that dog fooding stage, then it makes sense. But if we move beyond that, it's more important to get other perspectives, like Hayana and Jackie are finding out that once you talk to people outside of our walls, they may do things differently and there may be a good reason for it. With my merge request research, we don't like to do large merge requests, right? We strive to do small. So does everybody else, but they have to deal with legacy code that we don't necessarily have to deal with. So their reality is a little bit different than ours. And when we don't think about those large merge requests and we only design and support for small ones, merge requests can get unwieldy really, really fast. So it's important to step outside of our walls every now and then.
Yeah, some food for thought. Dimitri, have anything to add to that, or should we move on?
I was like moving my mouse towards the mute button. No, it wasn't doing well. Good job of it. Yeah, thanks for that feedback, Lori. That makes a lot of sense. And I still think we got some valuable feedback. And perhaps as a last note to that, I think for the internal participants, most of them also could explain about their experience from their previous job, which makes it almost like an external participant in this case. Almost.
Yeah, that is helpful. I think it's more of the situational aspects that might differ than their inability to remember from before. So it's funny, like you might have the same job at a different company, you come here and you kind of do the same thing. But if you are in a different industry or a different organizational structure or different tools that you were dealing with, it could be different. But I'm glad that you got some feedback. That's more, any feedback's better than no feedback.
True.
Cool, thanks for sharing that. Ian, over to you. You have the next point.
Yes, we wrapped up the interviews for the dependency proxy category vision test. It went really well. We got really consistent results, and we pulled from both the sales TAM team and from our traditional recruiting. Both of them gave us a lot of valuable information, but one thing I would note, if you were considering it, is when you were talking to the people that came from sales, from who they've been talking to, and you asked them questions like, if we produce this solution today, as you see it, would it help your team? The participants from our traditional recruiting, their answers were a little softer, a lot more like, oh, it would be cool, or, you know, it's a free cookie, of course I would. Versus those that were coming from the sales teams had a very direct answer. Yes, it would work for these reasons, or no, what would stop me would be these things. And you definitely need to balance both of those opinions, but it was really cool to get that perspective from the sales team because they're coming from a position of, I want to try to get into your product for my organization, and I have very particular requirements needed to do that. When you're kind of just softly pitching not pitching, but presenting an idea, and they're not really that interested, that you get a little bit softer of an answer. So that was a kind of a cool experience that I would encourage you, if you're working on a feature that you've heard about from sales as something needed, that it's really great to interview with them.
Really cool. Thanks for sharing that. A good tip. All right, over to Dimitri then. Your comment is next. Just put it a bit down.
Yeah, this was just in case there's some extra time left. In the handbook, I created a merge request for progress delivery where I'm showcasing the UX OKRs there directly, so I don't always have to go and find the epic and see what's going on there. And also I've introduced specific stage OKRs for progress delivery, starting with Q3. And the nice thing about this is that this is extendable for everyone, similar as the jobs to be done format that we already had. So I'll briefly share my screen and I'll give you a very 2-minute small demo of it. Let me see. So here we have it. You see that the OKRs, there's this progressive delivery stage specific OKRs, and then we have these UX department OKRs. You can all find them inside of the OKRs.yaml file. if it loads. And here you can see there's like this structure you can follow. There's an objective, there are the key results. You can add however many you like. And if you go back in time, there's, for Q1 or Q2, there will be some progress reported, for example, for the Q2 OKRs of the UX. You can say, hey, we got 100% here. And of course, there's some optimizations to be made there. But the nice thing about this is that if you go, for example, to your archive, I've got a dedicated archive section here where you can see our 8 from past OKRs. But if you want to see how this is implemented, that is like a single line of code. And just to showcase that, let me see. There's the OKRs. So it's this single line of code that is displaying a partial that has another single line of code. Sorry for that. But basically, look into it. If you want to add the UX department OKRs to your handbook page, you are basically able to copy this and paste it. If you want to create your own, just add it to the YAML file and adjust as needed. It won't be super difficult. I think it's helpful, and it might be useful to as well.
I love this. I'll probably will have to do this after this call is over. Replicate.
Nice.
Thanks for sharing, Dimitri. Definitely cool stuff. We're at the end of the agenda, except the retrospective part. So I just want to check in if anybody remembered about anything else. Probably not, but just checking. And of course, so it's not yet 19th, but yeah, I feel like we're going to skip next week. And I know that we are not full. Ian just dropped and Vitika is not joining, but just wanted to ask, is there any like retro items or issues that you are encountering and maybe you need some help, or maybe you have overcame something that could be useful to others? Maybe it's a good time to vocalize. Otherwise,
sorry, can you repeat?
We're going down to the retrospective part, and I know it's too early for 19th, but the next week we're gonna skip, so it's gonna be over that. So I wanted to hear if anybody is encountering any issues, or like have any interesting learnings as a retrospective part to discuss right now, or we can just finish this session earlier, if not. I know that Rihanna is also catching up after the long vacation, so maybe.
Well, I have something to say. If you're gonna do a long-term, like a full month course or training or something, make sure you take time to dedicate to your studies. I think that was my biggest learning for this milestone, that you cannot do everything at the same time. In general, yeah. Give yourself a break sometimes, and I know that we do a lot, and especially that we are home now and it feels like we have time for everything. So it's just my reminder for others that it's okay to tackle one thing at a time.
How did it go, Rihanna, in general? Are you happy that you committed to that?
I'm happy because I wouldn't do it otherwise if we were in this intense, and I definitely learned things that I wouldn't learn here at GitLab, more in the sense of the theory of research and using different software. So it was definitely a different opportunity, but I was a student for a month, a full-time student. So that was very challenging. I'm still recovering. I'm still hangover from that. And I hope that I can make some contributions back to first I'm thinking the UX research handbook, and also see how we can apply some of the learnings and share this with the group on the fly. I'll think about it.
Hey, Hannah, there is a whole OKR dedicated to the research this quarter, so you may want to check it out.
My God. Sorry, no, save me. No, it's okay. It's fun. And yeah, that's my learning. That's my...
Good one, though. On that note, something that I learned is that a break is definitely needed. And I'm talking about the vacation, not about the learning. I took a week and a bit more of vacation this month, and I feel great. I also like connecting with family. So for those who have an opportunity to do that right now in these crazy times, it's super mentally helpful. So yeah, those people who did not take a vacation in a long time, make sure you do so. And especially enjoy the family and friends day, because this is what it is for.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody has anything else to add? Or we should be wrapping this up. Awesome. I'll stop dragging the cat by the tail, as we say here in Ukraine. I'll just close this session. Thanks a lot for your inputs, updates. And yeah, Hayana, good to have you back. Jackie, good to see you. I feel like it was a long time. Yeah, talk soon, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye.